Namaste. I found the inspiration today from the Bible for today's talk, and the title specifically it was Revelation, the book of Revelation, chapter 22, verse 13, which goes something like this: I am the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last, the beginning and the end. Now, why would I choose this? Well, it chose me, okay? I want to caution you or remind you that don't forget listening is 2 ears, 1 mouth. You got to listen to the universe. The song is soft. It doesn't repeat itself. It's almost like it echoes. It echoes. The realness, the truth of it echoes. But the sound of it is soft and not repetitive. Each lesson, you only get one chance. So listen and pay attention to what the world brings to you. Now, I've been pretty much in a reclusive kind of space, having just survived Chinese New Year's, something where I don't leave my house, I stock up, I stay home for the whole 10-day holiday. I didn't go outside, except I rode my bike a couple of times. My brother and I would take a ride now and then if the weather permitting. We've been having cold, kind of windy weather, so it's lended itself to staying home, but I stay home because what's going on out there is pretty much craziness, pressure, and the Chinese New Year's. It's quite an experience. You have to experience it for yourself to really understand. And the person I'm going to talk about came. I met him because of Chinese New Year's. He's a herbal doctor, acupuncturist, has a practice in Seattle, German descent, been in America for at least 30 years, long time. Hans, thanks for bringing me an opportunity to share. Anyway, he came into my life, and again, I was pretty much closed down. And my brother just kind of sprung it on me. He says, "Hey, we're going for a bike ride," but after we left the house, because he knew what my reaction would be. But we're going to pick up a friend, somebody that I met. And this turned up to be Hans. And Hans was telling me all about the benefits of omega-3. And suggesting strongly that I start supplementing my diet. And through the course of the day, we were to spend the day together riding bike, and then to come and sit in my living room for 3 or 4 hours after the bike ride. And I realized that this came into my life and that I should pay attention. So it's certainly not going to help. And I read about it, I dove into like I would do, and did my research on omega-3. And I will reach out and urge many of you to do the same research and consider. And I will talk, I think that maybe Hans and I will in the future, will try to do a video. I don't know if YouTube allows it, I have to research, but from him from Seattle and me from here, and that we'll try to cooperate so that we can share both my message and his message. Anyway, that's the purpose. That's why today's topic. And he mentioned Revelation. And it's been a while since I looked at the Bible. I've studied the Bible more. I have to say, I have studied it more as a historian. My background is history and literature. And what's the most historical literature in the Western world? It is the Bible, right? And he was talking about Revelation, and he wasn't preaching. I didn't go deep into. We talked about what I'm up to, but we don't really do good other than the science of what he's doing, herbal medicine, the fact that he's a foreigner, he's not Chinese, practicing acupuncture and herbal medicine, and having brought the sensibility of Western science, the research, and not only that, but his heritage is German, so that the combination is a scholar, and primarily he calls himself a scientist, okay, and herbal guy. But if he was to use one word, I think it would be scientist. Anyway, he mentioned something about the Bible, and he specifically said Revelation, and how that it was his, probably one of his favorite, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but one of his favorite books in the Bible. And I got interested to this. I looked through Revelation. I got it out, and there's a lot of Bibles available online now that people have furnished that you can just download and take a look. And I recommend that. It's certainly not in conflict with anything that I teach. In fact, I'm using this Revelation 22, chapter 22, verse 13. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last, the beginning and the end. Now, I've always been interested in the Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, Father, Son, and Spirit. And it's been really curious, historically, Christianity was very, very diverse. And the element that they call orthodox, that people follow today, was the victorious. Of all the diversity, they're the ones, because they were centered in Rome, and they're the ones that their word, they got to choose the word, and all this happened, of course, after the historical Jesus was gone. But there was a lot of diversity. Okay, and one of the problems that early Christianity, the victorious one, the orthodox one, the one from which the Bible, from which they were selective, right? By the 5th century, the 6th century, they'd nailed it down to what books are okay and what books let's put not in. And then other sects, other groups of these early Christians picked some of the other books. But it's interesting. It is politics, and it's really interesting. But from his historical point of view. But I got really interested in this because, look, I am, which is the source of everything. The Alpha and the Omega, the Greek alphabet, the first and the last letter. The first and the last, the beginning and the end. Now, two things, beginning and end, first and last, Alpha and Omega. Duality. And this was something that early Christianity struggled with, because they were monotheistic. The victorious sect, the victorious group, the victor to the spoils. To the victor go the spoils, okay? Anyway, and it's really interesting because this particular book and chapter and verse is identical in all the Bibles. I looked in 5 or 6 different Bibles, King James Version, the first word, everything that I could find, and all of them word for word identical, where I could find a lot of changes between different. So it jumped out at me. Okay, just jumped out at me. And then I started thinking again, I said the Trinity, and how they reconciled the Trinity. Well, the Trinity was a consequence of this monotheism, their attempt to reconcile. And they ended up calling it, basically they called it an unsolvable mystery. How can, if Jesus is the Son of God, isn't that 2 gods? And they believe in monotheism. And Trinity, then there was another aspect of the Spirit. But this was all God. So now how are they going to reconcile? Remember, non-dualism, my primary concern and the primary teaching that I want to share with you, the reconciliation of diametrically opposed, here we go, Alpha and Omega, first and the last, beginning and the end, diametrically opposed concepts. Just like I always use free will and destiny. So the Christians came up with something unsolvable mystery, and I'm not using their words. I watched a very interesting biblical scholar from Charlotte in one of the Carolinas, a professor of religion, and he's a historian, and it's a theological school, so it's very interesting that it's true scholarship without the bias. I've been exposed to different different groups of Mormons, for instance, and they're highly selective of what they pick. Orthodox Christianity is very selective about what they say that is within their. This is the word, even though there's other words out there. But this concept, this reconciliation, is part of the awakening processes, and maybe that's why it's unsolvable mystery. But it was waking up, becoming aware, understanding the oneness, the non-dualism, understanding the truth that it's a sphere, and on this sphere is things that I always talk about free will and destiny. Diametrically opposed means the opposite polarities, right? Opposites in the scheme of things. If you're thinking in a dualistic world. So the Christians, unsolvable mystery, well, I think if you keep at it, that was part of, actually this was a big part of the 4 steps for me, the 2.5 days awakening experience that I had in my meditative state, was this reconciliation. And this was the big aha moment when my mind could take free will, 100%, alpha, 100%, omega, 100%, the first and the last, 100%, the last, 100%, the first, 100% the beginning, 100% the end, without either imploding or more likely exploding. I could wrap my mind, I like that, I could wrap my mind around this, and not only do that, but understand the absurdity of it being anything different. It couldn't be anything else, and it's a cosmic joke. At least it was my cosmic joke that led to a 6-hour belly laugh, which morphed into torrential tears. Again, duality, laughter and crying, but the experience of reconciling these, the apparent duality is created solely by the mind, our minds. Just as the early Christians created the Trinity to somehow resolve their problem of monotheistic, just one God. How could there be Jesus? How could it be the Word? Other people call it, the Father, the Son, and the Word, the Spirit. This is somehow magically to them, mysteriously, but it had to be one or their whole system collapses. So it was necessary to say, okay, we have to accept that. It's just really interesting to me that this is what I stumbled upon, because I picked up the Bible for the first time in many years, or I went online, easier yet, and looked at the Revelation in particular because Hans had mentioned it. And here, now, he's suggesting that I take omega-3. Well, I open up I am the Alpha and I am the Omega. Hans, this is amazing, Hans. You're the Omega. Omega 3, take this and put, I didn't need much convincing. At first I was very skeptical, but I did my own research and I said, well, I think this will change my life. I want to stick around. My health is not very good, and I shared last time that I've been kind of suffering from the pains and the trials and tribulations of soon to welcome my 75th birthday. And I was actually looking at it at a time that, gee, if something doesn't change, I don't really have that long. I really have to be judicious in how I use my time. And it made me even more, the consequence of what's not fear, I welcome death is just the greatest adventure that I can think of at this point. And without death, there's no beginning. We talked about this a little bit, but the last time I shared with you how to live was before Hans, the universe brought Hans to my life, and they brought this Omega 3, and I've signed up, and I'm going to start this supplement, and I've already excluded other supplements because I believe that they really haven't been that useful. So let's try this one, and I mean at least for a year. At least it's anything that has to do with the Asian way. The Asian way of thinking about health took a long time to get sick, and it takes a long time to get better. So 3 years being the optimum in that all the cells in the body could be replaced within that 3-year period. So I want 10, 12, 15 more years. I want it for my wife. I want it for my studies. I want it for my teachings, or my sharings, sorry. But, que sera, sera, as I told my sister, what will be, will be. So pay attention to what the world brings your way. And you'll hear more about my adventures with Hans in the future. Thank you. Namaste.